I'd like to welcome everybody to the first Herald Magazine PBI webinar. It's going to be called The Miracle of the Restoration of Israel. And it is going to be a webinar version of the May-June Herald issue. So you might have received the May-June Herald issue of 2020. It looks like this. And inside that issue, there is a foldout that we are going to feature. And the foldout is going to detail the prophecies on a timeline from 1878 going through the present day and then on into the future with the information that we should plan to expect. Our seminar is going to feature 15-minute breaks, and we have disabled the chat between the attendees, and there will be no video opportunities for the attendees to turn on the video. If you have questions, you might send them to seminar@herald-magazine.com, but beware that we are not going to be monitoring that during the session. Well, friends, we have over 350 people registered from around the world. Right now, we have 150 people in the Zoom room and several others attending online in a simultaneous interpretation in Poland. And we are recording this in our videos, and those videos will be available afterward. If you'd like to friend us on our Facebook page, you can find us on the Herald Magazine Facebook page. I'd like to take a moment to thank Brother Stefan, who is our technical host. And we will have two prayers during today's service. We will have Brother David Rice open with prayer at the end of our introduction, and we will have Brother Jim Parkinson close with prayer at the very end of our day. Now, we timed this presentation or this seminar to be to synchronize with Shabbat in Israel, because we have invited two very special guests to be with us during this session. And one is Brigadier General Gal Hirsch. He's a personal friend of mine. I've known him for several years. And then another is Yoni Cooper. If you've received the email, you were able to click on the links and to learn more about those two individuals. The idea between inviting these two folks to be with us is, number one, they're biblical Zionists. They are activated by the scriptures. They have a relationship with God. They are a strict, high moral and ethic behavior, and they're going to open up the experience of Israel to you. And you're going to be able to see the Valley of Dry Bones prophecy live happening before your eyes in the hearts of these two wonderful men. Now, there are some amazing things going on in Israel. I don't know exactly everything that the people will share today, but we're going to do those two sessions in an interview format. So without further ado, let's get into a discussion, Brother David. First of all, welcome. It's good to see you.
Thank you. Nice to be with you.
Tell us, let me ask you a few questions, and you're welcome to ask me a few questions. But when you first learned about these prophecies of the restoration of the nation of Israel, how did that then change your life?
Well, I guess you could say that was the beginning of my life. I actually don't remember a time when I didn't know that Israel was going to be involved in the opening of God's kingdom. One of my earliest memories is of my father showing me a group of salt shakers and dishes, arranging them with Israel in the center and other nations around, explaining that Israel was going to have a difficulty just before the kingdom and be delivered by God. So really, I've known this ever since my thinking memory begins.
That's fantastic. I remember your father, Gilbert. He was a precious child of Christ and of God, and I really appreciate his leadership, and the values that he's installed in you are priceless.
Thank you. Brother Todd, may I ask, what are we going to learn today?
Well, thank you. We're going to learn about the Valley of Dry Bones prophecy, and we're going to learn about the 7-step process of the raising of Israel from the dead. Basically, it began in 1878. That's part of my presentation. We're going to learn about the time prophecies that point to 1878. There are two that we will share. And I will tell you, every time that I speak before a Jewish or Christian audience, by the way, I always speak the same message to Jews or Christians. I don't vary my topic or my content. And so you're going to see some things today that are both Christian and from the Jewish perspective. But whenever I share these timing prophecies with people, there's audible gasps in the audience because these are new concepts. So we're going to share that. We're going to have a few of the other speakers that were involved in writing articles. We're going to have, of course, you're going to speak about the fig tree in Matthew chapter 24. And then we're going to have Yoni Cooper, and he is in charge of strategic partnerships at the largest non-governmental organization for children who need help, disadvantaged youth. And then we're going to have my 1878 presentation. Brother Len Grice is going to speak on 1948. And then the Breath of Life will be our brother Ernie Kinsley. And of course, Brother Jim Parkinson will speak about what's next. So that's kind of an overview of what we're going to learn today, but it's all centered around Ezekiel 37 and about the Valley of Dry Bones prophecy, that there's a 7-step process that we can follow.
I like that, number 7.
So let me ask you this, Brother David. We probably have about 100 people that will be joining us today, and of course that will be watching the videos afterward. There are some Christians that believe in something called replacement theology. So what is your answer to those Christians who claim that the promises that God made to Israel, natural Israel, apply to Christians only?
Well, Brother Todd, as you know, the Christians have a heavenly hope. That's what Jesus inspired us to have. But when God made his promise to Abraham eons ago, he said your seed would be as the stars of heaven, spiritual, and as the sand of the seashore, earthly. And what many Christians omit in their thinking is that there will be a 1,000-year kingdom on earth for all the remainder of mankind. And that's where the nation of Israel comes in for the kingdom hope, because all the prophecies tell us that 1,000-year kingdom will commence with the nation of Israel. So the regathering of Israel today is a fundamental issue in the progress towards the establishment of Christ's kingdom. So Christians should recognize there's more than just the heavenly hope.
Okay, terrific. And, part of prophecy is opening up the window and looking outside to see what God is doing. And that's what we're doing today in this presentation. We want to open up that window and look outside and get an inside-out view of what's happening in Israel.
Thank you, Brother Todd. I know you're a very inspired person. You speak that way. But what was the inspiration behind choosing this subject for your Herald magazine?
Well, thank you for asking that question. Gal Hirsch was one of those people that inspired me. He went through a very difficult experience. He was in a terrorist attack. He was 100% disabled for over 1 year. He was in the hospital. And he's actually probably the most expensive Israeli soldier in the history of Israel, because his car was crushed by a big boulder that was rolled on top of it by terrorists. And half of his bones are replaced with titanium. And it took well over a year to do all of the surgeries. And then after about 1 year, a little longer, he was able to move one finger. And I saw that was emblematic about something, that was emblematic. The titanium, the bones that would be brought together to make this body alive again, that inspired me. And it caused me to take another look at Ezekiel 37 and find those 7 steps of Ezekiel 37, which we are going to talk about today. Well, David, we have 2 more minutes. I have one more question for you. Tell me about, what is it, we are Bible students, what is it that allows us as Bible students to have such a unique view of the modern day nation of Israel among the Christian community today?
Well, I think most Christians, when they even think about Israel prophetically, think that maybe it's nothing more than a sign of a coming final collapse of everything. But it really isn't the collapse of everything. It's the beginning of establishing the most wonderful time that the world has ever known. Now, we know that when the Christian message began, it began with Israelites in that upper room, because they're the chosen seed. And when the kingdom begins, it's going to begin with Israelites, because they're the chosen seed.
Okay, thank you very much. So I just wrote a note to my technical editor, my technical host here, to see if Gal Hirsch is available. If he's in, yes, he's in. I see his name. Gal, I'm going to take 15 minutes to introduce you. Brother David, thank you very much. And for everybody who doesn't know, Brother David Rice is one of 5 editors for the Herald Magazine. And all of the articles that are written for the Herald Magazine flow through those 5 editors and are edited. And take it from me, because sometimes they allow me to be a guest editor, and they edit the articles, and they have very precise scriptural information that is available to you in that beautiful format.